powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword. The Bible was born relevant. It speaks on principle level to anything we need to hear. And it's always going to give us some really good help there. They tell me that virtually everybody on the planet will suffer from some level of depression at some point during life, and I'll confess to you, I believe that. But we need to be really careful about it. Depression is a word that is big and elastic. It can speak of anything from, I don't think I'm real thrilled with life today, to I can't get out of the bed and I'd rather be dead than alive. And that is a tremendous range. You heard in the good prayer a mention of clinical depression. That's beyond our ability to be helping with much. We're going to pray to God and we're going to be good to one another in every way that we can. And just to be fair about it, chocolate pie never hurts. But clinical depression is beyond us. With that life-altering, where you can't really function well and you can't do much about it, you're going to need to see a mental health professional, and you're always going to need to be praying and dealing with God's people and worshiping and doing all those other wonderful things. In the middle part of depression, we can do a whole lot to help one another on a day-to-day level. And one of the things that we really want to be thinking about fairly with one another is prevention. Have you noticed that prevention saves you dollars and saves you time? I'm not as good a person as Laura. The belt, the main belt on the Toyota we generally drive, broke when Laura was driving it in front of an AutoZone store. She turned into the parking lot, went in, see what's wrong, what do I need? She bought the belt, they put it on for her free. If it had been me driving, it would have broken in the middle of O'Neill Bridge. And it would have taken a tow truck and 9 policemen to get us to somewhere to do something about that. The other day, she heard a tap, tap, tap in the tire. It was a bolt, hex head. They could have plugged it and fixed it, but they couldn't fix the nail hole where the nail was, ruined the tire, and it was nothing $900 wouldn't fix, because if you need one, you need two, and if you need two, you need four, and it all had a happy ending, but helps kind of better if you don't think about it too very much. So we're going to be very pro-prevention. We're also going to be Bible-believing and never make light of any struggle that a brother or sister is having, because it just doesn't do well for us to presume to make light of any struggle somebody else has going on. The Bible very much speaks about depression. In Numbers 11, verses 10 and following, Moses prayed to God to take his life. You're not having a good day when you have to ask the Lord to do that. We'll be in 1 Kings 19 most of tonight if you'd like to turn there. 1 Kings 19 is Elijah right after Mount Carmel. Carmel is a mountaintop experience, literally and metaphorically. The prophets of evil are defeated and killed. The Lord is vindicated. The people turn their hearts away from idolatry and evil back toward God and good. But then Jezebel puts out a hit on Elijah. You'll be like my prophets before the day ends. And she thought she had the power to make it so. And next thing we know, he is running for his life and praying for his death under very difficult circumstances. You think about the Psalms, Israel's songbook. Sometimes the Psalms are just as happy and light-hearted, beautiful, poetic as they can be. And then sometimes the Psalms 31, for example, the whole psalm, but especially the middle part, David describes his depression over the constant pressure of enemies. and over the idea of his own sin. Or you go to Psalm 35, and David there is sure enough bothered by the quality and evil meanness of the people who seek his life. And so he's asking for the Lord's help, as well he should. What is depression? Definitions vary. I don't mean to be rude, but I need to be real with you. My Uncle Joe used to be rural mail carrier in South Alabama. There's one day every month he could count at people on his mail route to be present at the mailbox when he came by. And that one day per month was Crazy Check Day. And I'm not using this lightly and making fun of it. That's what they call it. Got to get my crazy check today, and then I can go get my groceries. Part of this deal with depression in the U.S. right now is if you can get the right diagnosis and box checked, you can get some degree of government subsidy or such like. But I have to be really careful about that, because there is a brand of depression that's so severe it'll make you feel crazy when you pay good money and give everything you had not to feel that way. There's nothing manipulative about it at all. It's just as evil as it can be. Sometimes when we think about depression and what it is, some folks will describe depression as weakness. There's more to it than weakness. Sometimes it's weakness, and sometimes it's part genetic. And there's not much. Before my father passed away, he knew I had type 2 diabetes. He knew I had peripheral artery disease. He knew I had a degree of neuropathy. And Gary, he would apologize to me from time to time. Son, I'm so sorry I gave you bad genes. And it finally got to the point, just had to look him in the eye and say, Dad, like you are a geneticist with an electron microscope and you could screen the genes that you gave me. He knew he couldn't. He just felt bad for me. So we want to be careful about that. Sometimes it's weakness in terms of us not availing ourselves of prayer, of joy, of fellowship, the teaching of God's Word. Sometimes it's weakness in terms of living incongruently. You know what's right? Want to live up to what's right? Have you ever noticed how much it chews on you when you know what's right and you don't do it? It'll make a mess of everything, and it'll contribute toward depression. Stress and anxiety contribute to depression. Some people will say all depression is sin, and those folks say too much. It's a lot like anger in that regard. Some anger is sin, but the Bible also says, in your anger, do not sin. And the Bible also tells us from time to time that God was angry, and anything that God does or is by definition not sin. So we got to be a little careful in that regard. What we want to do is stack the deck biblically in favor of doing the very best we can to prevent, and the very best we can to help others who struggle. That's good business. Depression. What are the symptoms? How would you know if I'm depressed? The symptoms are amazing to me because they're paradoxical. They're weird. Sometimes they're flat out opposite. Some people, when they're depressed, won't eat, period. And that's not a great way to lose weight. It whips you too bad. It's not worth it. Other people will eat a quart of Haagen-Dazs and chew the plastic spoon. They will eat everything that the Lord sends and then go to the store for some more. Some people, when they're depressed, sleep like 23 hours, 30 minutes a day. If they can, they will not get out of bed. Other people, when they're depressed, get insomnia and they can't sleep. They can count angels and sheep and fleas and flies, and it doesn't matter what they count, they can't turn it off. It won't let them. Depression fundamentally sadness, tunnel vision on the dark side, losing the ability to see God and His glory and His good for a time. And that is really hard emotionally and otherwise. Depression will lower our feelings, our good ones, raise our pessimism, and cause us to miss the very best things, interfering with life and family and parenting and relationships and worship and anything else it can interfere with. So we want to be careful with that. For some people, you know they're depressed because they tell you. Don't know how many people have come by to see me. Some of my friends, when they think of depression, their next thought is Bill. And I'm kind of okay with that. Come by, we'll visit and see if we can do something that might help. I'm not insulted by it, but they'll just tell me, I'm depressed, I don't know why, but I needed to talk to you. Other people know why, and they'll tell you all the why. There are basically two big types of depression categories. Some of this is situational, episodic, out of the blue. You just don't know why it happened. It just jumps on you. And sometimes it has antecedent. There's something that has happened, and that's one of the things I'll ask people. Has something really tough or disappointing happened in your life? And then one of the things I get to do for them that's kind of fun and tends to help Christians, they'll tell me about some major bad event. Well, I would be just shocked if you weren't hurting. And then they'll say something to me like, you mean I'm not crazy? No, I'm sitting here, I'm not thinking crazy, I'm thinking human. And that alone tends to help in a pretty major way. Depression, when it comes, is best not ignored. If you wanted a musical definition of depression, do you remember Simon and Garfunkel? Some of us of a certain age will remember Sound of Silence. Sound of Silence is a depression song. It's a song describing darkness, my old friend. They had pleasant voices, and they sang it in a pleasant way, and lots of people missed the fact that it was indeed a song about depression. Now, if you want to change gears with that, I like original songs, and usually I'm not a fan of covers, somebody redoing the song later, but do this at home. Not appropriate for church building, but there is a group called Disturbed. They are disturbed and disturbing. They did a cover of that Simon and Garfunkel song, and it will rock you. Not in a happy sense. It is a poetic, musical, lyrical description of the pain of depression, about the best one I know. Do you know Bonnie Raitt? Bonnie Raitt, if you don't know Bonnie Raitt, you ought to. That woman can sing. Award-winning, talented, and such like. Her latest song that won awards, Just Like That. And because it is instrumental music, we wouldn't be playing it in here. When you listen to it, when you Google, be sure you're sitting down and you're somewhere with Kleenex. It is one more sad song. Just a few of the lyrics to kind of give you a feel for what's going on there. She's lived a vagabond, difficult life, the lady in this song, because she looked away for a moment 25 years ago and something happened, it's never described, that her son died. And she has lived depressed ever since then. The words I'm going to read to you, they're going to sound like blasphemy, but they're not really, they're pain. No knife can carve away the stain. No drink can drown regret. They say Jesus brings you peace and grace. Well, he ain't found me yet. Now, those lyrics would be more disturbing to us, except for the end of the song. I won't ruin it for you. She gave her son's heart away medically when he perished. And eventually the young man who got that heart and lived because of it finds her and comes to thank her. And I tear up when I think about the story. She puts her ear to that young man's chest and is with her son again. And the end of the song is, I spent so long in darkness, never thought the night would end, but somehow grace has found me, and I had to let him in. You talk about a powerful musical description. It works for me and helps me in many ways. I promised you that we would look at 1 Kings chapter 19. Elijah runs. One of the reminders to me, if it indeed is depression, and I think it is, that Elijah's dealing with and fighting to some degree, nobody's immune. You have a prophet on a mountaintop. The way I count the prophets, there are 450 bad prophets of one brand, and there are 400 of another brand, and if my math is right, that's 850 plus the crowd. Everybody there is on one side, Elijah and God are on the other side, and he wins through God's grace and power tremendous victory, and within 2 days, he's running for his life and ready to die. It's amazing. Ask the Israelis how life can flip on a dime and you didn't even see it coming. Visit an ER sometime. One of the saddest places on earth, but one of the places on earth that'll teach us to pray better than most anything there. Ahab told Jezebel about what Elijah had done, how he had executed all the prophets with a sword. She sent a messenger to him saying, so let the gods do to me and more, if I do not make you like one of them by this time tomorrow. And he saw that, and he arose, ran for his life. Beersheba, that belongs to Judah, he left his servant there. So he's almost alone, and now he is as alone can be. And the next thing we find in 19 in verse 4, he went himself a day's journey into the wilderness, came, sat down under a broom tree, and prayed that he might die. It's enough, Lord, take my life. I'm no better than my fathers. And as he lay and slept under the broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him and said, arise and eat. He looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals, a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. God sent a helper. We won't get an angel, not with wings, a halo, that kind of thing. We won't get a miracle. But God has angels who aren't really angels, if you know what I mean. He has angels with skin on and funny looking teeth and thinning hair. He has angels who can bake brownies, and angels who can cut grass, and angels who can make your car crank when it wouldn't crank otherwise. And if I can stretch that word that way, I don't think I'm being unfair to us being servants of God and good to one another. God formed us. He knows us better than we know ourselves. It's okay to voluntarily fast for brief periods if your doctor says it won't kill you. It's not okay at all to give up on eating. The system has to have fuel to run. God is patient. The angel does not immediately insist on an answer. He doesn't slap Elijah twice like they do in the movies and expect him to get up and go. He gives him a little bit of time to get his bearings. I've only fallen once since I lost my leg. I've learned you don't want to fall on a walker. It leaves pipe marks. But I've also learned that if you fall on your walker, the best first thing to do is nothing. Take a minute, get your bearings. Is there blood? Is it mine? Is there much of it? That kind of thing. The next deal is broken bones. If I think no broken bones, okay, that's the next thing. The third thing is Laura wants to get me up, and I'm thinking, She has to drive and cook and do laundry and all this other stuff. What if she hurts her back trying to get me up? We'll be in some kind of mess. No, give me a minute. Get your bearings. Bring me a straight chair. And she brings a wooden straight chair. And eventually I arm up enough to get half of my bottom on the chair. And if I can get half of me there, I can get the rest of me there eventually. And it worked out fine. And I can't tell you how many times I've used the story. So it's really paid off in the long run. I wouldn't fall again for another story, but it gets tempting sometimes. Give people some time to get their bearings. As soon as there's a little time about this passed, all right, verse 7, the angel of the Lord came back a second time, touched him and said, "Arise, eat, the journey is too great for you." You're not going to sit here and die. You're not going to sit here and vegetate. You're not going to sit here. It is so easy for people when there's depression to just stop and do nothing. And the devil will eat you if you stop and do nothing. You just can't do that. There's going to be a journey. Planting a seed of a future focus. You have somewhere to go. And that somewhere you need to be going, God already knows. Get ready to do this thing. And I like that. The other part of the thing I like about the journey is the journey involves physical exercise, doing something. Everybody who knows anything about depression will tell you it wants you to shut down and do nothing. But the body was made to work and move to whatever degree it's able to work and move. Plus, this journey gets you outside. We're in a weird part of the year now. You don't have to remember the name, but they call it seasonal affective disorder. It's a fancy way of saying it's easier to get depressed when there's less sunlight, when you're able to be out less, when you're trapped in the house even more. And so the cool thing about that is buy you some good lights that are suitable for you and light up your house, at least a room of it, way extra happy, and then go to some happy places when you do get out. Choose to stir. That part is clear and easy to us. He sent him to a cave, or went to a cave, verse 8, spent the night in the place, and the word of the Lord came and said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Get depressed people to think. Not pressuring, not arm twisting, not threatening, but could we talk? Put an open-ended question out there and see if they will begin to tell you something about their story and their pain. See, is there any degree of future focus anymore? If not, lend them some. That is really helpful. Elijah does answer the question, but he answers it in a way depressed sort of way. I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, killed your prophets with a sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. I think Elijah believes that. But Elijah is wrong. He is not alone. There are thousands who have not bowed their knee to the idol. He just doesn't know them. He doesn't see them in the moment. And that's one of our jobs when we're helping one another deal with and overcome depression. Help people learn to see better. I liked last night. I'm going to like tonight. Don't mind telling you, my favorite moment last night was William leading the song and his daughter lighting up like a Christmas tree and singing with all her energy. I can run a month on that. Every time I need to, I'm going to close my eyes and replay that happy. I like Daddy knowing enough to do that. That's just cool. I like daughter cha-chinging it, just owning it. My daddy is doing this. This is good. I know this song. I may have no ability to read words yet and capture all those others, but I got this one. We need that kind of help seeing better than we've seen before. He's wrong in his message. It's fascinating to me. The best lies contain about 90% truth. The devil wants us to believe them. Even the lies that we might sometimes tell ourselves, he doesn't mind mixing in about 90% truth. It's that, I shouldn't do this, but I'll read the label on rat poison. And you read it sometime. Look at the ingredients. The active ingredient, the thing that kills the rat, it's what? 2%? Tiny. And the inert ingredients, corn and something to keep the stuff from going bad, huge business, something like 97 point whatever percent. It's that 2% that gets the job done there. This is going to be challenged, and it is challenged later. Verse 18, I've reserved 7,000 in Israel whose knees have not bowed to Baal. Let's find some of those people, and let's help others find some of those people. The Lord tells him, go and stand on the mountain before the Lord. And the Lord passed by. A great strong wind tore into the mountains, broke rocks into pieces before the Lord. The Lord's not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake. The Lord's not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, a fire, and the Lord is not in the fire. And after the fire, a small, still voice, and Elijah heard it. God doesn't need a miracle. I believe every miracle in the Bible, but God doesn't need a miracle. He can act just as quiet behind the scenes, subtly, as he wants to act. God can get his work done. He can get his work done through his people, and he loves that. But God can get his work done in providence even through people who claim they don't believe in him. It's amazing how the Lord handles business and reminds us he's always near. We just need to believe it and find a way to see him, that he's always near. The Lord does two other things here that I just absolutely love. Elijah says again, I've been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left. They seek my life. It's like he has this written on a card. And it is. It's a tape, metaphorically speaking, that plays in his head. It's his line, and he's going to use his line, but God is not going to let him get away with that errant line. He's going to challenge this over and over again. The Lord said to him, go, return to the way in the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, anoint Hazael, king of Syria. You shall anoint Jehu, the son of Nimshi, king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah, shall be anointed as prophet in your place. And whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill. And whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. Then that famous line about 7,000 fellow believers who are not idol worshipers. And the next thing you know, Elijah is leaving there. When people seem depressed, go check on them. Show up. When people seem depressed, ask them what's going on and listen with big ears and bigger heart. Let them tell you whatever they need to tell you. Sometimes they'll be right, good. Sometimes they'll be wrong. That's also good, because you start erasing, helping them overcome that wrong thinking. You challenge it biblically. You get people to eat if you can. If they will go out and eat with you, in Florence, we might try Homeside. Meat in 3 inexpensive, good, big portions, or Mama Jean's. William and I had our last meal together at Mama Jean's. Good. The thing I like about Homeside is when you take people from out of town, you tell them the truth. It's a good place. You may get diabetes there because you'll be honey and sugar and darling and dear and sweetie. You don't even want dessert when you leave there. You've had about all you can take. And the locals call it homicide. Not because we're that deviant, but death by carbs. It'll do that if you order the wrong things. But if you can't get them to go with you, get pickup. Take it there and sit and eat with them. If you have to hold it in your lap, no harm, no foul. Just something to get them out. If you can get them out to the Lord's house, perfect place. If they don't think they can get there on Sunday yet, they're probably wrong, but we'll be nice and urge and encourage and pull instead of pushing, but out. Deliver Meals on Wheels together. Go see somebody in the nursing home. If I ever got to feeling sorry for myself with walkers and wheelchairs, ER or nursing home, either one will take care of me. I can spend just a few minutes there, and I'm at peace again. Lord, you have blessed me. I just forgot how much. And now that I've been re-educated, we'll move forward again together. Get them to do anything good and godly with you that they will do. Concert in the park. Just see and be seen. Serving in any kind of way. Anything that's pleasant and legal, all for it, big time. It's amazing sometimes how much they'll resist on the front end and how insistent you get to be. And then usually it's the same thing we mentioned last night about people feeling a little bad on Sunday, but I made it to worship anyway and now feel way better. They'll be able to feel way better. And even if they don't, they can say, I tried. And there's something big about I tried. Point them to God again. They may need a sermon. Preach them one. Plug one in. CD, streaming, whatever way most churches capture lessons. Good business for that. But the sermon they need may not be the kind you do in a church building, in a gospel meeting, or on a Sunday morning yet. They obviously need that too, but they might have to have the shorter version of that first. And that's cool. We don't see that well at night, and glare and sleepy will bother us. Josh drove for us yesterday and did well. Tonight, Rowan, our chauffeur, comes to us from suburbs of South Africa, Cape Town. I can promise you he's longer distance travel to get here than anybody else, and he's a good student as well. I can also promise you, if you ever get a chance to go to Cape Town, go. You will feel way blessed. Table Mountain, Signal Hill, the ocean, the two oceans meeting, the critters, including the baboons. Don't feed them, stay away from them. Lock your car. If you don't lock your car, they will take apart your car looking for the morsel of food in there. The Brethren, just sweet, wonderful. The only place I've ever seen that could rival Christians in South Africa would be Christians in the Philippines. They're just of a kindred spirit, even though they're a jillion miles from one another. They'll just bless you and make you feel better. Be one of those. I have friends who are effervescent, bubbly, like fresh opened soda. I'm not. I know that doesn't surprise you. My effervescent friends, I need a little dose of them every now and then. For me, it's about 30 seconds at a time every other month. And I admit that, but every now and then I need a dose of them. But you effervescent people, the rest of us do need you. We need to see some of that happier, better, sweeter, kinder, bubbly side of life. Just please don't be insulted if we can only do the small doses. And then for others of us, The folks we need to be seeing are not effervescent. The folks we need to be seeing are the workaday workhorses, the get-her-done people. You don't even have to ask them to do. If they see a need, they're already after it. They're already taking care of it. And you'll ask them every now and then because they haven't seen it yet, and they'll do that next good thing that they know to do, and you thank them, and they'll say, oh no, thank you. I can't tell you how much good it does me to be able to do something for God and for other people. And they're telling you the truth. That's just real and rich and wonderful. Love that. What would I do on top of these important other things that we've talked about from 1 Kings 19, based on Philippians 4 and verse 8? I would absolutely want to elevate their thinking. I would want them to think on the things that are good, pure, lovely, virtuous, of good report. Application of Philippians 4 and verse 8. I call it Joy Book. I didn't invent it, but I have to keep things simple. If you battle depression on any sort of mid-range level or lighter, I would even try it if I battled clinical depression. You can do it on your device, a file, but what I recommend is a diary, a composition book, pen and paper. It's better for this. You write on the front of it, Joy Book. Nothing goes in the Joy Book but joy. You can get you a grumble book if you have to. I don't recommend that, but if you have to, nothing but joy in the Joy Book. I'm going to ask you, please, in your Joy Book, commit one entry every day from now until we stop. One. Now, you can do more than one, but at least one every single day. And then the third deal is Joy Book only belongs to you. If you want somebody else to see it, you show them. If you want to read it to them, you read, but nobody has right to your Joy Book but you. So it can be just private as it can be. William, your daughter is in my Joy Book from yesterday. What could be better than a happy child blessed by her own father, meeting with the saints of God, praising Jesus? That is just cool. It can be a pretty bird flew by. It can be you saw somebody do some act of service for God. It could be a song led that encourages and invites us to teach one another. It could be a prayer. It doesn't have to be eloquent. We don't mind eloquent. We kind of admire that. But it's the heart that counts, the truth that counts. It can be any good thing in the world. I don't mind telling you the secret of the Joy Book because it doesn't spoil it. When you commit to write one joy, happy thing every day, your brain starts looking for it. It's like homework. I got to have something to do. Right, tomorrow for my journal, okay, I got to go to work. So you start looking. Depression makes you look downward. Two men behind prison bars. One saw mud, the other saw stars. Same bars, same prison, same conditions. Angle of outlook is the big deal there. So that's really sweet. One of the things I love about the Joy Book is if I'm having an extra bad, terrible, no fun sort of day, I can go back to the beginning of Joy Book and read again and relive some joys from months or weeks ago, and somehow they don't wear out. Certain ones of them have lasting value for us. Go with the Joy Book. And then if you really want to excel, this is up to you. Some of the most godly entries, I'm talking about praising God, appreciating Him, entries in your Joy Book, start sharing with friends, especially friends who aren't Christians yet, so that you can help them begin to see God more accurately. The giver of life, the lover of souls, the one who sent His one and only Son to die for us that we might be forgiven, redeemed, born again, baptized for remission of sins, added by the Lord Himself to His own church. So many opportunities there. When we lost Alan, that was not a happy set of adventures or anything akin to that. But I can tell you this, people love to ask us, why aren't you more depressed? We were too well prayed for, too well cared for, too blessed. If you ever want to hear Providence stories for an hour sometime, come visit me. We'll do Providence stories for an hour, and we won't run out of them even then. If you are depressed, don't stay there. Evaluate. If the depression is due to sin, repent. If the depression is because you know there's a God in heaven and you don't belong to Him, obey the gospel. Put on Christ. If the depression is because you know what's right to do before God and you're not living that way, come clean with God and let folks help you. You must be so blessed. It's not like it'll flip a switch, go away. But I've been told you have two all your life. One in God is a majority. Elijah proves that. And one in God's a majority in every aspect of life. I love letting God be right. And what God tells us, if we're His children, we're redeemed, we're forgiven, our sins are washed away, they're as far away from us as east is from west. God remembers them no more. And we're walking in the light, living toward heaven. If you need to take a step toward Jesus tonight, let us know even now as we stand, as we sing.